Welcome to the Housing Digital Micro Conference on the Building Safety Act, the future of compliance in housing. With the Building Safety Act now fully operational, it is important to understand just what this new legislation will mean for housing. In this session this morning, we will highlight the challenges that lie ahead for providers and how they can utilize data and IoT technology to prepare for the changes. Housing providers are already seeing the benefits of remote monitoring technology, such as deterring issues before they arise. This session will explore how such innovation will prove pivotal as the Building Safety Act comes into force, ushering in a new era of housing compliance. I'm very excited today to hear from 4 keynote speakers. So moving on to our next keynote is Vicky Houghton. Vicky is the Head of Asset Compliance at Taurus. Vicky, feel free to share your screen and begin your presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Vicky Houghton. I am the Head of Asset Compliance and now Building Safety at Taurus Housing Group. And I just wanted to run through today our approach at Taurus. So a little bit of background. I have been the Head of Compliance for about 3 years now at Taurus. And about 12 to 18 months ago, our building safety regime moved from being delivered by Health and Safety into the compliance team and is headed by myself. And the reason for this is we wanted to take a holistic approach to compliance. So what I mean by that is we have all of the big sort of 6 areas of compliance. Obviously, you know, asbestos, you've got your gas, your electric, your lifts, your fire. And they sort of ran linear, so we deliver those programs and we utilize our data, but actually for us building safety crosses it is compliance fundamentally. So it's about making sure that performance of our compliance areas equal a safe building for our residents to live in. And part of that was understanding how we all play a part, and we've delivered a lot of briefing sessions and partnership workings and working groups across all of the different teams within Taurus to bring that together to make sure that all of our processes align, that our handovers where one process ends, another one begins, and it's seamless. So we've worked with the health and safety team, developments, asset planning and data. And it's about knowing our stock, and you know, Nick touched on this before. So for us, it's about data and having validated, robust data to be able to determine where our risk areas are, where our pinch points are, and where our gaps were. So we did a gap analysis in terms of the requirements of the Act and the Fire Safety Act, and looked at actually where we needed to improve our QA processes, where we had to look at our maintenance regimes, building materials, and looking at the life cycle of that building so that we had a seamless approach. We reviewed our specifications as well to make sure that our specifications are fit for purpose, and that our development works would consider fire safety as a key factor within their design as well. And we've worked very closely with our procurement teams to make sure that, for example, the asset specifications for investment align with those with development. We've worked with comms and our marketing teams as well about driving a safety culture, which is kind of where we took off when I took over. So this is about a safety culture within the business, and we've delivered some tunnel vision training with our housing colleagues, but it's also about supporting our customers with that information, and we developed a tenant safety handbook, and we've utilised our website, and we've done a number of campaigns and updates as well to get the tenant voice involved. And to sort of determine our path in terms of how we promote that service and how we develop that service when now it's under compliance. And again, our biggest, you know, bugbear in terms of compliance has always been access. And we've got a number of buildings where we've got, you know, we need access in terms of to inspect sprinklers and things like that. So it's about working with our local councils, working with our legal team and our housing colleagues as well, to make sure that access is a key priority for all the areas of the business. So in terms of our journey so far, so we've developed a building safety strategy, policy, management plan and procedures, and that is in the guidance of operational guidance. And they've been developed to mirror and align with the existing compliance policies and management plans and documentation. We have registered our 4 high-rise buildings, which are above 18 metres, and we've developed our safety cases, so we're ready for when that, that notification comes that we have to submit for a building assessment certificate. And the delivery, we've now done a restructure, and we have a specific building safety team, and we are looking at the activities which are primarily along inspections, resident engagement, having those drop-in surgeries at those relevant buildings, and we're starting to develop our operational plan and how we're going to deliver that. Golden thread and holistic approach. So we've done a review of our data, and we have looked at what software and innovation that we need and technology we've had to invest in, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. And to support that, we did a compliance review and a deep dive. So we looked at all of our areas of compliance, and we brought in Savills to assist us to do that. And on the back of that, we developed a gap analysis, identified the risk areas, and have had an action plan put in place now for the past 18 months. And we're pretty much there, and we're due to have Savills come back and do a reassessment on how we've performed against that action plan. Surveying and programs. So this is about what we know what we know. So we've linked in with our stock condition surveys, looking at the health and safety hazards, category 1s, category 2s, and how that aligns with what we're doing in terms of compliance. So we're not working alone. If we've got a gas safety check every year, or we've got an electrical safety check due, what can we do to facilitate and do a stock condition survey at the same time to try and increase the access rate as well, and to get that data in and make sure that we're getting the right data and we're not having to go back. Resource and training. So we've done a training matrix, and we've also been looking at where we need to upskill and what we can bring in-house. So we've brought asbestos surveying in-house, for example. So not only does that give us better value for money, but we're utilising our own forms, which then goes directly into our system as well. So we've got that data much quicker, and we're able to analyse that data and to do meaningful outcomes on what the next steps is for that property. And reporting and monitoring. So we've done this massive data cleanse, and we moved to QL, which is our housing management system, and Taurus are an amalgamation of 3 large housing providers. So we've had different ways of working from that amalgamation. So we've cleansed that data to make sure that everything is relevant, and we can do that 360 approach in terms of our delivery and how we review that asset. So just a little overview on how we're doing. So like I said, we've got 4 buildings which meet the criteria, and we've got 2 which are due to be handed over. One's due in September, and one's due in the start of phase 1 is in January of 2025. Our new structure's underway, and those vacancies are currently out for advertisement if anybody's interested for a building safety team. And we have on our 4 HRBs, we've done a type 1 FRA. With FRA type 4s underway, and we've completed an FRAEW and an ESW1 form as well. We have no remedial actions identified for the cladding, which is fantastic. And a structural survey has now been completed for each HRB, and there are a number of things. So we look at the risk of impact of a vehicle colliding with the building, for example, but actually what are the control measures we can put in place for that as well. And we have no immediate risks there in terms of things that we need to rectify, but there are some great recommendations on what we can do to increase the control measures around that building. Like I said, we've got our new strategy, policy and management plan, but we've also launched an e-bike scooter and mobility scooter policy as well to support that, because we found that this is, from our inspections, a bit of an issue in some of our buildings, not necessarily in our high rise, but in some of our more higher risk and complex buildings as well. So to support our housing colleagues, we've developed that in collaboration with them. And we've done tunnel vision training. So this is about missed opportunities. And when you go into a property to deal with a repair or with a housing query, it's about actually seeing the bigger picture. And we've delivered that training across the group to get the buy-in for that safety culture. We developed a handover process with our development team to make sure that we are getting the right information, and that actually at handover, all of that documentation ready for the safety case is there, and we don't get into a situation where we do our pre-occupancy FRA and we're finding that there are issues there to resolve before we move residents in. And C365 is our new compliance management software, which we are implementing for the Big Six. And this is to help give us that holistic approach and interfaces with our housing management system as well. And as probably a lot of people will be aware of, the FRS survey returns to NEROSH, and we've done 3, and the 4th one obviously is due on Friday of next week. So what's next for us as we're developing our team and we're getting those people in place? We're looking at making a more bespoke resident engagement strategy. So we have, you know, a panel, but actually that's not really working for us because we're not getting the engagement that we wanted. So we're working in collaboration with our tenant voice team to look at a different way of doing it. So this is more face-to-face drop-in surgeries, customer portals, and looking at technology as well. So like a digital concierge, so customers can provide that two-way feedback from site. And again, although that the Act is, you know, specific on the buildings it relates to, we're adopting the same principles to some of our more higher risk buildings because we have such a diverse range of customers and stock portfolio as well. We are developing that operational guidance document. So we have, you know, the principles there, but we're looking at expanding that as well so that we have full, you know, operational process maps for every sort of scenario that we can think of. And these will mirror the ones that we already have in place for the compliance Big Six areas. And like I said, we're looking at different ways on how we can communicate with our customers and to get that increased engagement rate, because we're just not getting it at the moment. We have a few very engaged customers, but it's also, we have some which are quite hard to get into contact with and to get them to give us that feedback. I won't dwell on this too long, but this is just to give a little bit of an idea of our internal process that we're looking at in terms of the life cycle and where it goes from a build and gateway 1, 2 and 3 processes to the handover stage, and obviously that preparation work for the safety case and for the registration of those buildings. And then the tourist landlord, which is essentially, it's a combination of assets and housing and a number of other teams to make sure that you know, digital threads of information and the mandatory occurrence reporting as well, because some of it will not, you know, be picked up on site by the investment team. So it's making sure that we're all on the same page with that. I'll very quickly touch on BIM modelling and technology. So we have a live digital platform that we've invested in, and this is, we've had the 4 buildings digitally scanned, and this is, we're looking at utilising that. Our safety cases at the moment are in Excel, and we're transferring that data into into our platform, which is Twindy, because that's got a live safety case reporting capability as well. And also the scans have provided a walk through the building. So not only is this really useful for the fire service and, you know, any sort of for any emergency situation, but also our housing colleagues are very fond of it because it gives, you know, it has multi-use really. They can use that for virtual lettings and things like that. And our you know, stock and condition data as well can support this in terms of our investment decisions as well. Residents do have a customer portal so that they can have access to the digital thread of information in a customer-friendly version, and it allows them as well to be able to view on that key information, which of course is a requirement of the Act. And as part of the platform that we've got, there is a digital concierge, which is a touchscreen kiosk as well, and we're looking at that at the moment and exploring it as a possible tool that we can use to enable residents to give us feedback automatically, and that will come in directly to the building safety team, and it's how we manage our complaints and things like that. So it is a really useful tool, but like you know, you say, it doesn't mitigate all of the risk, but it just gives us, the customer, more options. And that's it. I don't know if there's any questions.
Excellent, thank you, Vicky. So have we got any questions for Vicky, please?
Hi.
I've got one. It's Mark Cantrell, editor of Housing Digital. Remember to identify myself this time. Yeah, I was just listening to some of the things you were saying there about your work to try and engage the tenants more and change all that. And I'm still a little unclear about what you said earlier about how you were looking to bring tenants into your holistic approach, whether that's part of the same process or something slightly different. So how are you looking to include tenants and residents in the
Yes.
emergence of your safety culture and processes, and what impact do you think it's had that you've done so far, and what are you learning from it? You know, what are tenants teaching you?
Yeah, so I mean, we've took the traditional approach. So we've got a scrutiny panel. We've got LOC, which is our landlord operating committee, which is very involved. Tenants are involved in that and report, and they give us feedback, and they are involved in the community. And we looked at doing a resident engagement board just for building safety, but obviously that's to include residents of those high-rise buildings. And the problem we had was those tenants were just not connecting with us. There seemed to be no uptake on that offer. We've done stuff through the website, but again, it's about understanding whether some of our customers may not be that digitally savvy or prefer to communicate in that way. So for us, it's actually looking at different ways to do it and to try and connect with as many people as possible. The holistic approach is about feedback, and it's about understanding what the barriers are that the customers have, because we have quite high no access rates on a lot of our compliance work streams, which to me, indicates that customers A, aren't engaging, and B, perhaps don't quite fully understand the importance of the checks. So it's about education as well, and bringing customers along the journey to shape it, because the resident engagement tenants panel was kind of like the traditional approach, and that's what we tried to go with. But actually, that's us telling the customers how we're going to engage with them, when it should be the other way around. So that's the work we're doing now, and we have people on the ground, door knocking, housing officers speaking to customers to gather that feedback for them to tell us how they will prefer us to communicate with them, and then we will build that into our developing resident engagement strategy. Does that answer the question?
It does, yeah. Thanks for that.
No worries.
Thank you, Vicky. Comprehensive answer there, Mark. Have we got any more questions for Vicky, please? Alan Coates. Alan, just want to introduce yourself.
Hi, Alan Coates, Property Compliance Manager at Cheltenham Borough Council. I just wanted to ask, because we use QL as well, and we have a real issue with being able to utilize it for fire risk actions. And
yes.
I noticed that you said you're going to implement C365. Is that because you weren't able to get QL to do what you needed to do to track all of that? I only ask because yesterday we literally just started a big process of trying to figure out if QL could do it, and I don't think it will. So
I agree with you, Alan. For me, QL is a housing management system, so it's very good at certain things, and we can run our programs through it. So all of the phasing and the escalation process, it's really good at that. But in terms of a compliance system, it's not, which is why we've gone ahead and looked at at the moment we run our FRAs on a FRA portal, and we have our asbestos data in QL. However, that we have to have the surveys in Documotive. There's a number of different systems, and I think there's a massive risk when you do that. So for us, it's about having all of our compliance data in one place, and then you can do your relationship mapping as well, and you can identify where there are gaps, because it will pick out, you've got X amount of EICRs, but X amount of FRAs. Well, an emergency lighting, if you've got emergency lighting in your FRA, it's got to have an electrical supply. So it enables you to do that sort of thing, which is about QA and validation and robust data. But I agree with you that C365 can communicate with QL, and it can update the date of last and date of next service. So again, you're taking away that human error. But I totally agree with you. I don't believe, a housing management system is actually what designed. You're trying to fit a square peg in a circle.
It'd be interesting if other associations have the same sort of difficulty, especially with QL, because I have a real issue trying to explain that to obviously the powers that be, that actually this system won't do that, and we'll need they're reluctant obviously to go to another system outside of the management, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So
outside of this, if you want to, connect with me, because I did a business case to get this through GEMT and to get approval and transformation board. So I'll be happy to have a chat with you about that.
Oh, that'd be great. Many thanks. I'll do that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for your question, Alan. Next, we're going to come to Matthew Rainsford, who's got a question around the around BIM data.
Yeah, hi everybody. I am building safety project manager at A2 Dominion in West London. So, Vicky, question I've got is: you've got all your twin data in the system. How do you keep it up to date to make sure that data doesn't fall out of date and you've got it's current? So for example, a fire door or an AOV or something like that, how do you link and keep it up to date?
Well, that'll be the next stage of our development with C365. So we're in quite early stages. So we've got the scanned buildings into Twindit, and we've put the basic information in. We've attached our FRA, we've attached our FRAW, but it's about looking then at the capability of C365 being able to automatically send data into that system where we need it, and to manage that will be the platform for the building safety team. So as part of their remit, that's what they will work off, because we will get customer queries come through and things like that through the portal on there. So it's about making sure that we can automate as much as possible, because manual intervention is quite a dangerous game, really. It's the 2 digits next to the one on the keyboard, and it just takes someone, it's slightly bigger fingers to put the wrong information in. So I'm a big believer in automation, and they're the conversations I'm having with C365 at the moment.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
We're going to go to Scott Lawson for one last question, and then Abdur Rahim, I'll put you in the same breakout room as Vicky, so you can ask that question in a smaller group. But over to Scott. Scott, can you introduce yourself and just quickly ask your question, please?
Yep, sure, no problem. I'm Scott Lawson, CDM and Fire Risk Manager for Rochdale Borough-wide Housing. I did have 2 questions, but I'll just jump in with the main one for me. Just thinking about vulnerabilities and engagement with residents through the strategy. I was just wondering how you've identified vulnerable residents within your buildings, and if you're offering them any kind of support or assistance, kind of like person-centered fire risk assessments or peaks or anything like that, and how you've built that into your safety case and into your resident engagement.
Yes, so we have done PEEPs, and we do person-centered risk assessments, and we work in collaboration with housing management as well, because obviously the housing officers for these buildings know the customers very well and work with them on a regular basis. So my fire team are often at the buildings as well, so they have drop-in surgeries, just so that if customers do have any questions, often the housing, rather than go to the housing officer who will pass that question over, we have people there who customers can come and engage with. We also, at our high rise, we have like a caretaker service as well who work for us. So we've got a point of contact who's at that building. In some cases, they're a living caretaker as well. So you've got that, somebody who's there 24 hours. We have girder boxes, we have all of that information in there, and we work very closely with the primary authority as well, so that we're making sure that they've always got the most relevant data, and those girder boxes are kept up to date, which has got, all of the plans in the ERP packs and all of the PEEPs in as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Vicky, for a whistle-stop tour there. That was really good. Just to summarise today's micro conference, then we first heard from Nick Davis, who's the commercial director at Switchy. Nick introduced Switchy's platform and how they work with housing associations to provide warm, safe, and energy-efficient homes. The technology that Switchy developed can be seen by the resident via a 4G connection and with the data gathered from their IoT sensors. Nick gave us a really cool case study of how the data can show patterns, which can not only improve the homes, but by adding new ventilation systems, for example, to prevent mold, obviously helping housing associations to create the strategies moving forward. We then heard from Vicky Houghton. Vicky was the head of asset compliance at Taurus. Vicky delved into the strategy and the actions that Taurus have taken to respond to the Building Safety Act. In all parts of the business, tourists have looked at how they can improve the process and the communication internally as well as with residents externally, taking a full holistic approach to how to respond to building safety. Using tech, but also face-to-face interactions and various platforms to gather more data. Tourists are creating and improving continuously in building safety. Our third keynote was our architectural contribution from Andy Wan. Andy was the director of BTP Architects and looking at the on-site building aspects of the Building Safety Act and compliance from an architect's perspective. His presentation answered the question of what housing associations should be looking at when analysing their housing stock and identifying any non-compliance issues. The main takeaways we found from Andy's presentation was that we don't know what we're working with always. The correct team needs to be in place with the right qualifications. Good communication is key, and processes are in place, and to always keep in mind the phrase "do the right thing." And then our fourth and final keynote presentation was, of course, from Heidi Flack. Heidi is the Director of Compliance and Building Safety at Anchor Housing Group. Heidi introduced the policy within Anchor's building safety and how they have implemented this, how it is continuously improving to get the right balance of face-to-face engagement, tech, platforms, IoT, and on-site data to use it in the right way. Heidi talked about the art of the possible and how you can improve things within your own organisation. She summed up the whole point of this microconference very well by reminding us to remember the why. With Glenfell and obviously the hugely unnecessary deaths can be avoided, and that's why we're here and doing what we're doing. So big thank you to all four of our keynote presentations today. And just a quick reminder from me, a couple of things. A couple of dates for your diary. We have our Housing Innovation Show returning in 2025 on the 12th and 13th of Feb. Our brand new website for that is now live, www.housinginnovationshow.co.uk, a live event in person, 2 days. Huge showcase of innovation in the housing sector taking place at the ICC, which is where the National Housing Fed used to have their conference in Birmingham, central Birmingham. And also our next online microconference, the 19th of September, all about regulation and making the grade. So thank you for everyone who attended today, and a big warm thank you to all our presenters as well. So thank you for attending. That wraps up today's microconference. Thank you very much.